When compulsory superannuation was introduced in Australia in 1992, Australians were sold a promise: work hard, save consistently, lock your money away until retirement, and in return, a concessional tax system. Stability, rules people could rely on. That social contract is why Australians trusted super and built trillions of dollars inside the superannuation system. But now many are asking, has the deal changed? Because from 1st of July 2026, we have Division 296. And I will be blunt, this is one of the most significant proposed shifts in super taxation in decades. Today, I want to unpack what it is, why it matters, why the argument that this only affects a tiny minority may be misleading, and why many Australians who think they will never be impacted may be wrong. Because this is not just a debate about tax. This is a debate about trust. Let's start with what Division 296 actually is. In simple terms, it imposes an additional 15% tax on earnings attributable to the portion of an individual's total superannuation balance above $3 million. Sounds complicated. This is on top of tax already applying inside super. Now the government says this only affects a small percentage of Australians. That sounds reassuring, but that statement misses something important. It assumes wealth is static. It ignores compounding. It ignores inflation. It ignores inheritance. It ignores what happens when one spouse dies and super death benefit passes to the surviving spouse, potentially pushing them over the $3 million threshold. And it ignores insurance proceeds inside super as well. This is a big one. Imagine a member has life insurance held through superannuation and passes away. Insurance proceeds can be paid into the fund as part of the death benefit. That could significantly increase the surviving spouse's balance overnight, potentially tipping them over the threshold of $3 million. Not because they are ultra wealthy, not because they were gaming the system, but because of a life event, a death, an insurance payout, a disability, a transfer of family wealth. That changes the conversation completely. Because suddenly, this isn't only about people already sitting above $3 million in super. It can affect ordinary Australians through events they might never have contemplated. And this is where the small percentage affected narrative starts to unravel. Because it looks only at who is affected today, not who could be affected tomorrow. And those are very different numbers. And to me, the bigger issue is precedent. Because super has always been built on certainty. People make 20 and 30-year decisions based on those rules, based on trust. They build strategies around those rules, bought property in SMSFs around those rules, structured estates around those rules. And now the rules move. That matters. Because confidence in super system matters. If people start thinking, or if governments can change the deal after I've locked my money away, what else can be changed? That affects behavior, and it affects the entire system. That's why so many professionals are concerned, not because they oppose paying tax, but because they question changing foundational assumptions. And that is a legitimate concern. Now, let's challenge this idea that only a tiny number of people are affected. Maybe today. But what about tomorrow? A business owner, a surgeon, a professional couple contributing for 25 years, compounding at strong returns? Could they hit $3 million over time? Potentially. Now add inheritance. Now add death benefits. Now add insurance proceeds inside super. Now, at the surviving spouse consolidating balances. Suddenly, people who never thought they were near the threshold may be there. And that is why saying this only affects the wealthy can be misleading. Because wealth accumulates. That's how retirement works. And as many commentators have pointed out, this small percentage framing understates the dynamic nature of wealth accumulation. I agree, it absolutely does. And there is another issue hardly anyone is talking about: death benefits. This is huge. When one spouse dies, the surviving spouse may inherit super interest and suddenly breach thresholds they never expected. That can alter tax outcomes, estate planning, pension strategies, liquidity planning, even how couples structure balances during life. And when insurance inside super is added into the mix, the impact can be even greater. That means Division 296 is not just a tax issue. It is an estate planning issue, a family wealth issue, a succession issue. And I think many Australians have not joined those dots. Because once someone has passed away, planning opportunities may be gone. Now, if you run SMSF, particularly with a property, business real property, private assets or concentrated portfolios, you should be paying attention, because this is not just theoretical legislation. This can affect decisions today. Asset allocation, liquidity, valuations, pension planning, contribution strategies, estate planning, and potentially whether certain assets should remain in super long term. Now, I'm not saying panic, and I'm not saying make emotional decisions. I'm saying understand the rules before the rules affect you. Very different message. Education first, emotions never. That's how trustees should approach change. But here's what concerns me most. Today, it is sold as targeting very large balances. But policies evolved, thresholds move, definitions change, governments change, and history tells us tax measures often expand. That's why people care, not just because of today's tax, but because of where it might lead. Because once retirement savings are viewed as a policy funding source, people start asking difficult questions, and trust begins to erode. That should concern everyone, because Australia's super system works when people believe the rules are reliable. Undermine trust and you weaken the system. That's the bigger issue. So, is Division 296 just a tax on the wealthy? Or is it something much bigger? I would argue it raises deeper questions. Questions about trust, questions about policy, questions about the future of super. And every Australian should be paying attention, because whether you are above 3 million now or nowhere near it, this debate may matter to you more when you realize. And perhaps the biggest risk of all is assuming it will never affect you. I'm Natalia Clark, and thanks for listening.